y'all, Dixie here. For those of y'all who missed it, I recently tested out the DupleXL on my hike in the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore in Michigan a couple of weeks ago. It was a 42-mile stretch, and considering I'm pretty familiar with Zpacks tents, I feel like I got a pretty good test on it. The Zpacks DupleXL is very similar to the Duplex that y'all have seen me use in the past, but it's got more usable length, hence the name DupleXL. The difference as far as dimensions between the Duplex and the DupleXL are in the bathtub floor. They take up the same space, the same footprint at a campsite, but the floor width on the DupleXL is actually 1 inch more narrow than the regular Duplex, and the floor length is a half a foot longer, so 6 more inches of space either in the head area or the foot area, depending on how you position yourself in the tent. From what I understand, the main design difference that helped give more usable floor space is the little riser rods that you'll see on either side of the tent, on the head area or the foot area on the outside of the tent. Each riser rod gets staked out to help stretch the material and lift it up off of your foot space and your head space. So with this setup, you actually need 8 tent stakes, 1 for each corner, 1 for each vestibule, and then 1 for each riser rod. The tent body is constructed out of 0.55 ounce per square yard Dyneema, and the floor is constructed out of 1 ounce per square yard Dyneema, so it's a little bit thicker and more abrasion resistant, naturally, because the floor and the underside of the tent is going to see the most abrasion with you sleeping on it and then with it touching the ground. Dyneema is the strongest fabric in the world, so it tends to hold up in higher winds pretty well. It's also waterproof, so it's not going to soak in water like a nylon tent will, and it's very lightweight, which is convenient for those of us who like to put all of our stuff in a bag and disappear into the woods. And another thing I love about Zpacks tents is they come already seam taped, so you don't have to fool with any of that. It's ready to go out in the woods as soon as you get it on your doorstep. The DupleXL weighs 20.8 ounces and it costs $749. Luckily, I got it for $50 off on a Memorial Day weekend sale, so that's something that you can think about if you're on a budget or you just don't want to pay full price. You can shop for backpacking gear upgrades around the holidays, and usually you can find some companies that are running a sale. So let's discuss some pros and cons of the DupleXL. First off, I love that this is a very lightweight 2-person backpacking shelter. Finding a 2-person shelter that weighs significantly less than 2 pounds, I think, is a win if weight is important to you. The DupleXL is what I would say is the second most simple 2-person tent setup. The first being the Duplex, because you're not having to stake out the riser rods, that's just an extra step. But in general, Zpacks tents, the Duplex, DupleXL, and the Triplex all set up very similarly, and it's so straightforward. There's nothing to really fuss with. It's my favorite tent to set up because when I get to camp, I don't want to have to think a lot about, oh, which side is supposed to be the head or the foot. Is it going to be inconvenient the way the door opens? With this tent, it's got the half moon shape, so any position that you decide to set the tent up in, and whichever side you put your head or feet, it's convenient to open up the zipper and reach out in the vestibule. As I mentioned, the DupleXL, because it's made out of Dyneema, it won't pull in that water if it gets rained on. So once you set it up at night, when you wake up in the morning, even if it rains on your tent, it's going to be taut. It's not going to be soggy and saggy like a wet diaper. I like that on the inside of the tent, there are the little bungee doodads on the head and the foot area. That really helps to pull the bathtub floor up and make sure that it can't push outside the wall of the tent. I was thinking the DupleXL would be a little tight for 2 people. And even with the extra foot space, I wasn't sure how it would work out having our gear inside the tent too. But honestly, I was really impressed with the DupleXL and how well it functioned for 2 people. And even with it being an inch narrower, honestly, I didn't notice that at all. The extra foot space was absolutely awesome. That's been, I guess, one of my gripes with the Duplex is that it's something to keep in mind. Oh, I'm in a single wall tent, so I just have to make sure that my sleeping bag or quilt isn't brushing against the wall and getting damp, especially in colder temperatures. When it's warm outside, not that big of an issue. Now, I'm 5'8", Marty is 6'2". With the DupleXL, neither of us had any issues with condensation on our quilts. And another thing I like about Dyneema tents is because they are made with that thicker Dyneema on the bottom, you don't typically need a ground cloth, so you're not adding extra weight onto your shelter. So while I love this tent, obviously there are trade-offs, and it's not going to be the perfect tent for everybody. So some things that could be seen as cons: first of all, it's a single walled tent. And while I like that because it helps drop weight on the overall shelter weight, some people don't love a single wall tent because they have to deal with more condensation. If you've got a double wall tent, you've got some protection against the outer wall that collects the condensation. But with this tent and the new design with the riser rods and having more bathtub floor space, the condensation issue has been significantly mitigated because you don't have to worry and stress about brushing up against the wall as much as you do with the regular duplex. Single wall tents will also not be quite as warm as a double wall tent, so if you're a very cold-natured person, I actually am a very cold-natured person, and I still, because of the weight savings, prefer the single wall tent, but that is something to think about. Also, Dyneema can be noisy. If you're a person who wakes up with any little noise, then Dyneema may not be for you. If you're somebody who does not like the Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite sleeping pads because they sound like a bag of Fritos that you're sleeping on, then you might not like the sound of Dyneema. Also, something that I've never really mentioned before, but I think could be problematic for some people with the DupleXL, the Duplex Triplex, is that these tents that are made out of the thinner Dyneema are semi-transparent, so you can't clearly see everything going on inside the tent. But if the sun is shining on the tent, or say you're in the tent with your headlamp on, you can definitely see that it's a figure in there and some colors, but it looks more or less blurred out. Again, not something that bothers me, but if that creeps you out, you might want to go a different route. Or Zpacks also offers the DupleXL in a thicker Dyneema. You will end up adding on an extra ounce overall and another $50, but that is an option and it should be more durable. I also don't love that Zpacks tents don't come with stakes. They offer a variety of stakes on their website, so I guess they figure people who are gram weenies are gonna pick their own stakes anyway, but it would just be nice if you could get some complimentary stakes. So if you do go with the DupleXL, then you are gonna have to purchase stakes, and as I mentioned before, you'll want 8. I usually take 1 or 2 extra because I've been known to leave behind a stake or 2, but you at least need 8. One trade-off with the DupleXL that I don't love also is the riser rods. I really like that they add the floor space, but it creates a little bit more time and energy in the packing up of the tent. I'm one that likes to just stuff whatever tent in the stuff sack. That's why it's called a stuff sack, right? But with these riser rods, I think it would probably serve me better if I would just learn to roll it. And actually on Zpacks setup video for the DupleXL, they also tell how to fold it up properly so it's easy to put in the stuff sack. But it just takes, again, more time and thought, and at camp I'm just kind of a lazy person. And finally, it's expensive. $749 is a big deal. So if that is a deal breaker for you, then I have recently reviewed some budget tents that I still think are reasonably lightweight and decent quality, and I'll put a link to that in the video description. Overall, for me, the pros outweigh the cons on the DupleXL, and if you're feeling the same way and you're sold on it, well, let me muddy the water for you a little bit. Zpacks also just came out with a new duplex design that's lighter and tighter. It weighs 18.5 ounces and it costs $699. So it's lighter and cheaper, but you get half a foot less in usable bathtub floor space. So for 2.3 ounces more weight and $50 more in cost is the extra 6 inches of floor space worth it for the DupleXL. That's for you to decide. For me, since I've already bought the DupleXL and I really loved the fact that I didn't have to stress over whether my feet were touching the wall, and again, I didn't have my hood getting damp. For me, yes, because 20.8 ounces is still ridiculously light for a two-person tent. But if I was having to make that decision right now to go with the new Duplex or the DupleXL, it would be pretty hard for me to make that decision. And also, just to make you aware, if you're gonna use the DupleXL as an actual two-person tent, you're planning to go backpacking with another person and share that space, for only 0.8 ounces more, you could have the triplex. So you would have much more room for two people in the tent. Although, like I said, I think the Duplex did do well with two people in it and gear. Of course, the triplex is an extra $50, and with the triplex, it's only 7.5 feet in the bathtub length, so you don't get that extra 6 inches that the DupleXL gives. Now, if they came out with a TriplexL, that would be pretty cool, but of course it would weigh a little bit more. So anyway, that is my experience and my opinion on the DupleXL. I've used a lot of tents over the years. I've been doing this now for 7 years. I should probably count sometime exactly how many tents I've tested out, but I haven't been able to find a tent that I like better than the tents that Zpacks has to offer. With the Duplex, the DupleXL, and the Triplex. I like all of them a whole lot, probably tied, but for different reasons and different applications. Now, if you're a beginner and you're not really sure that you're gonna get deep into the world of backpacking, no, it doesn't make sense for you to buy a $700 tent. But if you're somebody that is wanting to upgrade and you're gonna need a really light pack, maybe you've had back surgery, or you're like me and you carry a lot of heavy other stuff like trail cams and tripods, etc., then you know, it might make sense for you. Or if you're somebody who's going to be spending a lot of time on trail, like a thru hiker, then it might make sense to spend that kind of money. So now, with all of that said, before somebody's like, how much does Zpacks pay you to say this? They didn't pay me at all. I'm not sponsored. I don't trade free gear for reviews, etc., etc. I always say that. And I paid for this tent with my own money. Like I said, I did get a $50 discount because it was Memorial Day weekend. But I'm just telling you, I really do love these tents. If you have any questions about the DupleXL or even Duplex or Triplex, feel free to leave those in the comments below. And if you've got any experience with the new Duplex or the DupleXL or Triplex and you want to share your opinions, then I'm sure that would be helpful to other people too. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and we will see y'all next time.